Hey everybody, KC here. So baseball's back. And I have to admit, listen, I wanted baseball to come back. I was skeptical about its ability to come back, but I am really glad that baseball is back. It was, even with empty stands, it was amazingly reassuring to be able to turn on the TV or the radio and there'd be a baseball game there. I mean, it was just wonderful. Now my team is the Mets. We could have had a better weekend. We went 1-2 against the Braves, par for the course. But what's interesting to me, and I as much as I miss baseball, I think in some ways I miss the sounds of the game as relayed by the guys who call the game. Now, and in the case of the Mets, we're really lucky. We have one of the best TV broadcast teams in the country. I'm not just saying that. That's generally said about them. Gary Cohn, Keith Hernandez, Ron Darling. I mean, they're just terrific. On radio, we have Howie Rose. And I found that listening to their voices was just enormously reassuring. You know, when I was a kid, I basically came of age in terms of listening to baseball in between the time that the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants left and went to the West Coast and the New York Mets started. So during that period of time, I was a Yankee fan because that was the only game in town. And I can remember as a little kid sitting in bed on hot summer nights, listening to the radio and listening to Mel Allen and Phil Rizzuto and Red Barber up in the catbird seat and Jerry Coleman. And it was like, that was the soundtrack of my growing up. And I was reminded of that this weekend as I was listening to the voices of these people who served as our guide to baseball. It's not just the sport, I think, and for so many of us, depending on what market you happen to live in, you're attached to those voices. And that's a fascinating thing to me. You know, it's funny, and they're our guide. And I think there may be a metaphor for business in there, that businesses, retailers, if they really want to grab people, not just by the pocketbook, but by the heart, by the soul, by the stomach and the food business, it's important to serve as that kind of reassuring guide, that voice that doesn't just tell people what's going on, but gives them a greater sense of meaning. Okay, I think that's what these people did. When I was listening to the games or watching the games this weekend, I was filled with joy because there was something reassuring about what was going on there. Again, not just what was happening on the field, but the sounds of those voices telling me not just what was happening, but why it was important, which is really a good thing to do, especially because, as we know from the great Robert B. Parker, baseball is the most important thing that doesn't matter. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning, and as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.